The Firecrawl skills give any agent the ability to search, scrape, and crawl the web. But it also gives them the ability to do market research, audit a live site's SEO, and clone an entire design system from a single sentence. Which is wild because most of the popular skills out there reshape your agent's personality. These skills, however, genuinely give your agent new abilities, which sounds a bit simple until you see how they're actually built, because I've never seen skills built like this before. So let's get into it. Oh, and before we do, don't forget to hit subscribe. So there are a few popular skills that I use quite regularly, like Caveman to reduce my agent's token output, Ponytail to help my agent focus on building just what's needed for a feature, and I even use the built-in Claude Code review skill to review my PRs. Now you'll notice these three skills have something in common. They don't give the agent new information, they guide the agent to do a task in a specific way. But the Firecrawl skills do something different, and it's something I haven't seen many other skills do before. So first off, you get your core skills, which are the features from Firecrawl we all know and love, like the ability to search the web, to scrape from a URL, to interact with a live website, and much more. These are essentially teaching the agent how to use the Firecrawl CLI. But then you get a layer of skills on top of these core skills called workflows, like market research, doing an SEO audit on a site, lead generation, and much more. These use the core skills under the hood, taking advantage of skill composability. In fact, at the time of recording, there are 16 of these workflow skills, and if you think there's an important one missing, then let me know in the comments. But we're not done yet, because there are a whole different set of skills called build skills that teach your agent how to integrate Firecrawl into any app using the relevant SDKs and APIs, which I'll go through in way more detail on another video. For now, let's focus on the core and workflow skills, which I'll explain with a simple demo. To get started, you'll need to run this command, which should work in any coding harness. But before you hit enter, let's actually explain what this is doing. Now, this whole command is designed to run in an agent. So if you wanted to, you could plug this straight into Claude Desktop or an equivalent, and it should just work. The Y flag here after npm means it's going to skip any configuration prompts, which is useful for an agent, but if you're a human, you can remove it if you want. Then it installs the latest version of the Firecrawl CLI in an npm-specific temp directory, which it uses to run the init subcommand to globally install the CLI. The all flag is used to install all three skill segments, so core, workflows, and build for every agent, and the browser flag opens a browser for you to sign in to Firecrawl if you haven't already authenticated by putting your API key somewhere in the shell. I tend to always do this, so I'm going to get rid of this flag. So after you hit enter to install all the skills and restart your agent harness, it should pick them up. Note, each segment has its own repo if you just want to install all the skills for a specific segment, and if you want to install an individual skill, you can find them on the Vercel skill site after searching for Firecrawl. One final thing to do is to make sure you've disabled or uninstalled the Firecrawl plugin for Claude Code and the MCP server so that the skills don't clash with those tools that you've already installed. Now once that's done, I can give Claude a prompt like scrape the Vercel pricing page, and we can see here the agent automatically picks up on the Firecrawl scrape skill and uses it to give me a detailed answer. We can also ask it to search for the latest news from Anthropic, and here it chooses to use the Firecrawl search skill. But using a workflow skill is where things start to get a bit fiddly. So here, if I give it the prompt to compare Stripe versus Aiden on pricing and other things, we can see that it does use Firecrawl, but it doesn't use the Firecrawl specific workflow for getting intel. To help the agent, we can modify the prompt to use a Firecrawl workflow skill and then continue with what we had before. So now if we run this prompt, we can see it now chooses the Firecrawl competitive intel skill, which gives me a comprehensive result, getting data from live pricing, blog, and newsroom pages. And we can see here the table that it shows with all the information on this section goes all the way down to recent strategic bets. And if you compare it to me asking the same prompt in regular Claude Code, this table only has 4 rows. Claude even admits that the response from Firecrawl is way more comprehensive than the one that it provided. Let's try something else. Here I'm going to run the workflow SEO audit tool on a site that I've been working on. So we can see again, because of the prompt I used, it picked the right skill. And it's written a report to this markdown file, which if we open, we can see it went through 25 URLs, scraped 15, and it gives me a very detailed report on the things that are missing, like no sitemap declared in the robot.txt, a thin content footprint, and generic titles. And if we go through this session to see what Claude did to generate this report, we can see it ran a lot of shell commands. And if I click on this one, most of the shell commands it ran were Firecrawl CLI commands. We're going to try one more workflow test, which is to get me the design system of the Canva website. And here it uses the Firecrawl website design clone skill to capture a screenshot and eventually creates me a design MD document, which contains things like a design summary, design tokens, typography, and many more things that are difficult to visualize in Markdown. So I created a HTML document of this, well, Claude did, which is more visually appealing, including the screenshot Firecrawl took, as well as the information we showed before, like colors, typography, spacing, and much more. So that's a quick overview of the Firecrawl skills, a way to not only let your agent crawl and search the live web, but also to give it access to 16 workflows that it can run jobs end to end with. If this has piqued your attention, Firecrawl has a super generous free tier that you can use to get started. And if that's not enough, you can use the code FirecrawlYT to get 500 extra credits. But if you prefer using MCP servers over skills, which is fair, then check out the next video, which goes through exactly how to set up and use the Firecrawl MCP server.